App building begins. Let's see where it goes. Chinese versus Western literature. What are some books you should read? Air raids over the weekends. What are they for? And wedding stickers. Well, isn't that neat? Folks, this is episode number 58 of the Language Log Podcast. My name is Stephen. Let's get to it. All right, we're trying a new setup for this episode. I guess I kind of change up the method I shoot this podcast every now and then. And for the better part of a year, I've been holding onto the microphone while recording this podcast. And that has meant that whenever I watch or play back the video, it's always, I'm holding the microphone in a little bit of an awkward situation. I have a chair, a black chair that has two arms on the right and left, right? And so normally I can rest my arms against that. But the problem is that when I'm recording and I'm holding this microphone, if I'm resting my arms on this chair, it kind of looks like I'm sort of presenting my chest a little bit more. But if I keep my shoulders or my elbows inside of the chair arms, then I kind of look as if I'm withered away. And that's not something I really want to look like when I'm playing back these videos. So hopefully by this, what I've done now is I've put the microphone on an extended boom arm. Now I don't have an actual microphone. I do have a microphone stand, but I don't have a microphone boom arm that would fit this microphone. So this microphone, let's see, that one, that is the DJI microphone. I use this one for this podcast. I have another podcast microphone, the Shure MV7 Plus, which I use for other recordings. Actually, if you've listened to any of the IELTS videos that I've made or any of the voiceover type of work that I do, usually I'm using the Shure microphone. But for this podcast, one of the reasons I use the DJI microphone, Dajiang, is because it's small, it's portable, it's lightweight. I can take it anywhere. And given the nature of this podcast, I generally record it. I try to record it Monday or Tuesday, anywhere where I have time or a place to do it. So I've recorded this in the classroom before. I've recorded it outside. I've recorded it in offices before, or a cinema, I think. Did I record that? No, I didn't record one in Australia. But then I also record it here at the hotel. All that being factored in, I do like to try to keep this podcast a little bit lightweight. I don't try to make it a big production. Even though I'm looking around me now, I shoot this on my iPhone. It's just the easiest way to do it, the cheapest camera that I have. So I have my iPhone pointed at me, and then on my backup, I have an iPad that's also pointed at me that is connected to my MacBook, which is showing me what the iPad is recording. Now, this is and then off to the right, over on my right-hand side, is the microphone. And now this is a little bit more complicated than I'd like it to be, but the fact of the matter is that with technology and with to get a podcast done like this, it does require a few pieces of technology. I could simplify this greatly, and you might wonder, like, why do I shoot two camera angles? Well, there is actually last week's episode is probably a good reminder of why you record with two microphones and actually two cameras, I should say, with two microphone sources. And that's because if one clunks out, last week what happened was that if you notice that it sounded a little bit different, it sounded a little bit boomy, and that's because it was recorded on my iPad. So that sound file was taken from the iPad, which is my backup recording. It wasn't taken from the iPhone, which is connected to this DJI microphone. Now, all that is to say is that last week, now this doesn't really affect you too much, other than it might be a little bit of an annoyance, like, why does he sound like that? It sounds different this week. But last week, I ended up losing the first 23 minutes of the podcast that I shot on my iPhone because I hadn't cleaned off my cell phone. Like, the storage was full, and it happened 2 or 3 times. I'm going, why? And I didn't check this. I didn't think of checking the phone for storage because I thought I had lots of it prior to recording. And then as this happened again and again, I'm going, wait a minute, like, what did I do wrong here? Like, is it the app? Is it out of date? Is it the microphone? Is it the Wi-Fi connection? No, it was the storage. So I hadn't cleaned out the storage, and as a result, when I finally ended up cleaning it off, it was like 512 gigs out of the 512 that I have. So no wonder it was not keeping up with the recording. Luckily, I did have the iPad recording because also last week I was kind of thinking, do I really need to have two recording devices? I mean, it adds a lot more storage problems to my my workflow. Like now I have the iPhone camera, and then I have the iPad camera, and it's taking up more room on my hard drive. Do I really need to? Well, and last week was a good example of what, yes, you should have a backup in place just in case. But if this is your first time, this is episode number 58 of the Language Vlog podcast. My name is Stephen, and I run a language vlog over on YouTube that this podcast sort of complements. Now, this podcast originally started about a year ago, started last year, and it was more of an attempt to combine all of the YouTube shorts that we were making at the time, and then putting them into sort of a podcast format that people who could not access YouTube or who didn't want to spend their time watching 1 minute YouTube clips could then access the channel and some of the things that we're talking about, practice their English, learn about language learning, learn about Mandarin Chinese or what it's like to live here in China, and then access that through podcast format. And I know that the podcast format is a little bit different than the video format. And I've experienced this especially when I'm trying to shoot vlog style videos. Even the last couple of weekends, I've been shooting vlogs on the bus ride back to Shuangjing, and it's a different presentation style. Even though with this podcast, I have two cameras pointed at me right now, the fact of the matter is talking to the camera as a podcaster or as a voice-only type of presentation is a little bit different than talking to a camera as if, especially out in public, which is where I was taking the bus. Talking to the camera is a little bit different of a presentation style. And so for me, it's a bit of a balance between like presentation and then not just sounding good, but getting the words right as well. And with the podcast, since I'm focused more on the audio file than the video presentation, it's a little bit more fang-song, a little bit more relaxed. And again, with the podcast, it's meant to be a little bit more relaxed, I think. With the vlog style stuff, I think is meant to be a little bit more adventuresome, out there, and more visual, so you don't always have to have talking going on. For example, when I'm taking the bus, if it was a podcast, even the 10 to 15 seconds of not talking for a podcast, that's a long time for a podcast not to have any voice. How do you convey the bus movement? I guess you could use sound effects for the bus. That is one way, but then that requires a little bit different editing. With the vlog, you're shooting video, you're probably recording sound anyway. You take a 5-second, 10-second clip of the environments or the surroundings that you're around, close up of a sign or something like that, and you present it that way. So it's a little bit easier to have pauses and lulls in the video than it is in the podcast. Now, speaking of vlogs, so I do have a couple of vlogs on the way. I mentioned last week that I was going to have the bus vlog ready by the weekend. I didn't. Because, as I mentioned in last week's episode and in the newsletter of last week, that I have also become a student. I've signed up for an AI agent building course that's just started this past Sunday, and I now am looking into building up my own AI agents. Now, that is a bit of an excuse. I did have time this weekend to edit. I just didn't, because I was also shooting another vlog as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And with the semester kind of barreling ahead, I will tell you, I think I mentioned this last week, that time flies. It's amazing how each and every day is sort of a new deadline. And that when I say, oh yeah, I'll get that video done, all of a sudden a week goes by and I'm going, I did not get that video done. Not to fear, it is in the works. So I have that video from a couple weeks ago, which documents the bus journey from Chongping down to Shuangjing, which is where I normally live, or I have lived for the last 8 years. But I also have another vlog coming up all about whether or not you should learn Chinese in 2025. Is it worth it to learn the language, or is it worth it to spend the time learning a different language? Now, To be honest, learning Mandarin Chinese, or I should say learning any languages, is going to come down to basically one of two things. Do you need to, or how much do you really want to? And by those two things, I mean, if you need to, it's kind of like how a lot of my students or English students have to learn English. It's usually a degree requirement, or if they want to go live or work or study overseas, they have to prove their English proficiency. So they kind of have to. They're pushed, regardless of how boring my classes are. They have to sit there and at least try, because the payoff over time is probably better for them, especially in the student in the academic context. Now, on the flip side, it's how much do you really want to learn a language? And Chinese, whether it's Mandarin or Cantonese or one of the dialects, a lot of it is going to come down to, do you need to? Who needs to learn Chinese? And if you don't need to, how much do you want to learn Chinese? The point with this is that if you want to do something, you're going to find the time to do it. And Chinese as a language, since it's a character-based language, it's going to take you a long time. If you've never encountered Chinese before, if you haven't had exposure to the culture or very minimal exposure to the culture, and especially the language, it's going to take a long time to develop the familiarity and then also the automaticity of recognizing the characters. And if you want to expand your knowledge in the Chinese language, you're going to have to learn the characters, which means that you're going to have to spend hours with flashcards memorizing each and every character, the sound and the meaning, and then learning them almost again when they're put into combinations of 2 or 3 character words in order to learn or to expand your vocabulary even more. But I'll discuss this a little bit more once I release the vlog, as I think it's still an important point to take into consideration. At the same time, I don't want to discourage people from picking Chinese or Mandarin Chinese as one of the languages that they study. I just want people to have a bit of a realistic expectation, which, even thinking of that, does it really matter? You know what? If you want to learn Chinese, go for it. I can say that the people who have learned Chinese have spent a long time learning the language, especially the people who are fluent in the language. If they are appearing on TV or anything like that, usually they have lived in the country for a very long time, or more likely, they studied Mandarin Chinese or they studied Chinese prior to coming to China and then went to school here in China, and that pushed their language skills even further. But you know what? I know you're looking at Duolingo you're looking at the Chinese flag and going, hey, why don't I learn some Chinese? How hard can it be? I've always wanted to learn some Chinese. The Duolingo course is a little bit different than the resources that I would recommend, of which they are both the HSK courses, the standard course, and then, of course, my own course, which you can sign up for free. It's an email course that I send out. It's about a month and a half long. Sign up link in the show notes for this episode. Anyway, that was a bit of a digression away from my main point. I've mentioned this to my students before that I'm a digressionary teacher, where I kind of go on tangents and digressions. And a digression is a movement away, swerving away from the main point and then coming back to the main topic, not always with a clear focus. Like sometimes there's a divergent path of thought or train of thought that you go off of, and you're like, yeah, that's an interesting thing. We'll talk about kind of like what podcasting is all about, and then come back to the main topic and continue on from there. So with that, let's talk about another one of the videos that we just posted to the YouTube channel instead of one of the bus vlogs that I have forthcoming. So last semester, when I was new to campus, I was giving a little bit of a tour of the campus and walking around and talking to, not really talking to a lot of people, but if people stopped to talk, I would engage with them in a conversation. And one young man, an English major, an English graduate, stopped to talk because another student didn't want to or didn't understand the questions that I was asking. And then this graduate student, stopped and proceeded to say, yeah, well, I've already graduated from accounting or he's an economics major, and now he was an English major. So this video that we just published on the YouTube channel this past weekend is this sit down that I had with this graduate student, who is now reading a lot of, I guess what you'd call the classics of Western literature. I would actually say, looking at this list, William Shakespeare, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, Gabriel García Márquez, 100 Years of Solitude. I would almost say he's more widely read in the English classics than I am. Now, in high school, we did read a few classic books. Mark Twain comes to mind. I think that's where I read Canticle for Leibowitz, which I'd actually say is not really a classic, but people do enjoy that. It's a science fiction book, which I've talked about on the channel before. But what would be the other classics? Pride and Prejudice. I don't think I ever read that. Anything by Jane Austen, not really. Picture of Dorian Gray. I remember an Atlas Shrugged. So those are books I think some kids read in high school, but I never did. I chose other books. I think my choice was A Canticle for Leibowitz, whereas other people chose A Picture of Dorian Gray, or what's the other one? Great Expectations. I never read Great Expectations. I remember one of the guys I knew in high school describing Great Expectations as a very lengthy book that was so digressionary in its approach to literature that it spent a page or 2 pages talking about a chair. Now, again, I've never read Great Expectations, so I don't know. It might be a very good book. It might not be. Some people swear by it. Other people are like, it's just, wow, so meandering in its scope. Why would you spend your time reading that book? There are better modern books that you could spend your time reading. Now, that being said, I did read Shakespeare, quite a few plays in high school. Camus, I never read. Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre. Which books did he read? 2 books in English. I can't remember which ones he mentioned, but Jean-Paul Sartre, I've never heard of him before. Gabriel García Márquez. I have heard of him. Don't think I've ever read one of his books, either maybe snippets, but nothing too much. What I have read are the ancient classics, like the Greek and the Roman classics, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid. Did I read anything else in Latin? Possibly. Homer, Virgil, Herodotus is another one that I read quite a bit of, but that was already into university. It wasn't part of the high school canon of literature. So this sit down, this video that I talked to one of the graduate students, we talk about something like why he was or is reading Western books or Western literature, and what are some of the differences that he sees in the different styles of book, the Western and the Chinese literature. Because, as we all know, Chinese literature spans a couple thousand years. Lao Tzu, Sun Tzu, Sun Tzu, Kongzi, or Confucius, these books and these authors, their writings still, to this day, influence Chinese culture, Chinese society, and a lot of Chinese education system. Now, in this talk, we also cover a few modern authors. One I'd never heard of before, Lu Xun. Not sure if he was a peasant or if he rose up the ranks, but he wrote about the times during the Cultural Revolution or before the Cultural Revolution. Again, I've never read him, but when I mentioned his name to my students, they all knew who he was. The other one that they all knew was Mo Yan. And Mo Yan, I know because this guy, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature or something. Now, I've tried to read some books by Mo Yan, notably Life and Death Are Wearing Me Out, which was highly acclaimed. I couldn't get through it. It was just kind of a little bit too meandering for me. I actually kind of wonder if the reason I didn't get through it is because the translation I had wasn't very good. It seemed to actually be, it wasn't a very good translation. So, and I bought it here in China, so I'm not sure if it was like a good version of it or if this was like one of these secondary type of translations that maybe someone thought they could just capitalize on Mo Yan's fame. Anyway, the conversation with me and this English graduate student is available on the YouTube channel. It is titled Chinese versus Western Literature. And for your convenience, I've even put the books mentioned in the show notes for this episode if you want to have a look at the books that we talk about in that little conversation. Next up, what's with the app building? What is this course that I've partaken in? Well, I've decided to, if not career pivot, then at least add a new skill set to my overall talents and abilities, and that is building apps and AI agents. So if you've been following this podcast for a while, any number of episodes over the last couple months, you'll know that one of the things that I'm working on right now is actually building up apps and AI agents. So I'm working with a lot of these AI tools, the large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Notebook LM. I don't really work with the Chinese ones, the Doubao or DeepSeek, primarily because the ones I use in the Western, so the Western GPTs, Western LLMs, they kind of do a lot of things and they connect with a lot of the programs that I use, whereas the Chinese ones don't. And this is important when you're building AI agents, is this connectivity. So I've talked about using Zapier before. This is this is a platform, an online platform that kind of glues together different programs. So if I have a Google Doc and it's dropped into a Google folder, I can then have that file copied or moved over to another place and listed or updated in a spreadsheet, and then have that modified into a social media post or something like that. So I just have to send one message to a Slack channel or send an email or drop a file into this folder, and any number of other things can happen as a result because I use Zapier. However, to do this with a little bit more flexibility, that is not just an if this, then that, you have to use something like the AI agents. Now, without getting into too much technical detail of how these AI agents work, one of the keys to making an AI agent work is that you have to have something called an API. And an API is an application program interface or something, application processing interface. I can't remember what API stands for, but this is a special key, a secret key that you put into your agent that allows you to use AI or LLMs such as ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude, or Google Gemini in your workflow. So not only can you now have a file dropped into a folder and then copied into another folder or updated in a spreadsheet, you can now take that file and do stuff with it, whether it's modified into a social media post, create an image from it, send an email, draft an email that sounds kind of human as well. These AI agents can do a lot for you. Now, the problem with them is that they still need to be tended to. I think the greatest misconception of the AI agents and that these agents or these AI bots are going to take our jobs is that somehow they can just, you can set it and forget it. That's not true. As a matter of fact, you could almost make the argument that AI agents require more work than a human agent because a human agent would pick up on things after a while. AI agents don't. They don't learn. Basically, you give them a set of instructions and they read the same instructions the same way each and every time. So they might keep generating an error, and until you change the instructions or give them sort of workarounds, they'll keep on making the same mistake. Now, yes, of course, that can happen with human AI agents, but the difference with a human agent and an AI agent is that a human agent, you can send them a text message, an email, a phone call, face-to-face, all of that would work. With an AI agent, generally you have to go somewhere into the code or into your instruction set and update that. There's actually two reasons I'm taking this course. Number one, it deals with multiple agents working together. So you can build one agent. If you remember a couple months ago, I was talking about Manus AI and how I'd created a schedule for it to create a Chinese newsletter for me and a Russian newsletter for me each and every morning. But one of the problems I've had with that program or with that workflow is that it keeps on stopping once it gets to the Google Doc creation. So with a human, I would say, if you can't create a Google Doc, just create a PDF. Both are fine. Doesn't matter. But this program, since it keeps on reading the instructions, it keeps on getting stuck at the Google Docs, regardless of whether I say, hey, if you get stuck at the Google Docs, just make a PDF instead. It still kind of hits that wall of understanding or of instructions. It won't go anywhere beyond that. So the idea instead is actually to create a secondary agent that, if it notices this error happening, would then instruct the first agent to simply continue on using a PDF. Now you might wonder, like, what's the use case of all this? Why, Stephen, why are you doing this? Well, I was kind of sketching out an idea for an app. I've also talked about Catoven or Stimular. These are two IELTS preparation AI apps that are currently on the scene. And I was kind of thinking of the breakdown of these different types of apps. I kind of drew a little bit of a sketch. What would an app require in order to be an effective language learning tool? Well, number one, you'd create a text analysis app. That would be one agent where you can submit it writing, a handwriting or a computer-generated document, and submit it there. Number two, it could be a speaking agent, so you can speak and it can either transcribe your words or listen to you and then give you feedback. And then the other one would be creating reading and listening resources. So those are called receptive skills. So you're not generating anything with the reading or listening, but you could have the agent generate something. Now, those three tiny little apps would then be moderated by a larger app as well, a larger AI agent, which would tell them, hey, if this error happens, do this. If that error happens, do that. And all of those can be coordinated together to make one cohesive app, hopefully. I mean, that's the idea. So a couple of reasons. Number one, deals with multi-agent workflows. That's something I think is very interesting. And number two, I am looking to build a language learning app with this thing, not just for my own use, but also to deploy for other people if they want to use it to learn Mandarin Chinese or even for English as well. This is something that will be a part of the Buy Me a Coffee membership site that I have right now, and any sort of future iteration of that membership program as well. But as I've only recently started this AI agent building bootcamp, there's only so much that I know right now. I've watched a couple of the intro videos. It's going to take a full month. There's 28 days to get through the whole thing, full month. So this time next month, by October 23rd, actually, I think it ends October 21st. In theory, if I've done all the assignments, I need to complete 3 to get the certificate of completion. After those 3 or 4 assignments, I should be able to create and deploy, that is, to share with other people, an app that would do something useful. I'm looking to build a language learning app. Other people might be learning to build apps that would help them in their businesses or their work, but that's sort of my goal. In my ultimate goal to automate my job, which I think you've heard me talk about quite a bit on this podcast. So I'll let you know once those are ready to be shared, and that you guys can have a look at them and see if they're at all useful, or, to tell you the truth, if they even work. I hope they do. Let's put it that way. Finally, air raids and wedding stickers. What's this? Seems to be a little bit of a diverse tangent there, Stephen. A digression again. No, this was actually this weekend's fun discovery. I'd forgotten about this, but on Saturday morning, this past weekend, we had air raids. Now, Beijing runs these every few years. They don't run them all the time. And since they just had the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, I think this is one of the reasons why they test the air raid sirens. I actually was on Reddit later on posing the question, do other cities have this? Like, do other capital cities go through this sort of what seems to be a very dated exercise? I've never heard air raid sirens in Canada. Ottawa, like the capital city of Canada, they don't do air raid sirens as far as I know. I've never heard of like Washington, D.C. in the United States going through air raid sirens. London, Paris, nothing. Apparently, however, Germany still has air raid sirens. And of course, Ukraine is currently testing their air raid sirens on a daily basis, if not hourly. So since they don't happen very often, it's kind of a neat experience to see or to hear, I guess. Typically, they have 3 sets. So 10 o'clock was the first sort of warning call, and it goes like up and down in volume. So 10 o'clock to 10:03. Then it was 10:10 a.m. to 10:13. That was the second set. That was the official air raid siren. And then the all clear was given at 10:18 or something like that. Now, I did hear the first two, 10 o'clock and 10:10. I didn't hear anything for 10:18, though. So the first one at 10 o'clock, I was in the hotel sipping my coffee. I'm like, oh my good, I forgot all about the air raid. There's no point in trying to get outside for that. So I'm like, okay, well, the second one happens at 10 o'clock or 10:10. So I went outside to take a look at this and to record this. Now, I haven't posted this on the YouTube channel yet because I was kind of like, do I need to be posting this? And I just never got around to making the video that I wanted to make for it. But I did manage to catch the 10:10 to 10:13 air raid siren here out in Chongping district. And since I'm right beside Beihang University, the aviation university, it's a place that they're going to have the air raid siren go off. It's kind of like part of their job, I guess. So that was the first bit of fun this weekend. The second bit of fun was while I was walking back from recording this air raid siren, I noticed that on the ground, on top of the jingai, the drain hole covers, the manhole covers, there were these little stickers, these little red stickers, which at first I thought they were the Fu character. And Fu, the character for Fu, represents good luck or good fortune. Talked about it quite a bit, and no doubt if you're anywhere near Chinatown during Spring Festival, you will see this character all over the place. Just means good luck, prosperity, and usually good amounts of money. But it wasn't Fu. It was another character. And I'm looking at it going, this is traditional Chinese because I can't read it. So I asked the Bao An, the security guard, what are these stickers? And I'm looking at, it's not just one manhole cover. It's like 5 or 6 of them in one area. And they even here and over there as well. Like, what are these stickers? And he's like, oh, they are Xi Zhi. Xi Zhi, I've never heard of Xi. I don't know what Xi is, but Zhi, I'm guessing refers to sticker or some sort of paper. Well, turns out it is a way for a wedding couple to guide people to their reception. They take these little stickers, they put them on the drain hole covers. This character, C, is actually a duplication of the character C. So there's a single character version and there's a double character version, probably because there's 2 people in a marriage, and wedding ceremony, etc. So double it up, double the happiness. And it just means happiness. Now, Xi Zhi, which is what the Bao An said, I think he was referring to happiness papers or happiness stickers. Now, why were they on the manhole covers? They are meant to guide people towards the wedding ceremony or to the wedding reception. I'm not sure which one. Since at the hotel, I guess it would be for the wedding reception. That is, if you go too far and you don't see these wedding stickers anymore, that means that you are off the path. But if you follow the path of these wedding stickers, that Xi Zhi, then you'll be led towards the wedding reception, I guess. I didn't go to the wedding. I wasn't looking to be invited. Chinese weddings can be a unique experience for sure. But what I thought was kind of interesting, I've never seen these before in the 11 years that I've been in China. This is the first time I've seen these stickers, the first time I've seen these characters. So to see them on the manhole covers in a place like Chongping, which is like so far away, that was kind of neat. I will say that if you ever get invited to a Chinese wedding, you might not always be invited to the hotel shenanigans. And I don't mean anything super weird by this, but what happens, like basically at the hotel this past weekend, if there was a wedding going on, at some point they would steal the bride. You've probably heard about this happening. It's for fun in Chinese wedding ceremonies, but they steal the bride, they lock her up in a hotel room with the bridesmaids, and then the bridegroom, so the groom-to-be, his job is to bribe his way into the room and get to his future wife. And usually this requires him performing any number of antics or offering packets of money. And it could be any amount of money. It could be like 1 kwai, 5 kwai, 10 kwai, but they're put in these fu envelopes, these little red envelopes that have the character fu written on them. And then by bribing his way in, he then has to go find his bride in the other room as well. So there's a whole series of games that they play on the wedding day. And then once those games are played, the couple goes to the ceremony, and that's where the official sort of joining together happens. I've only been to one Chinese wedding in my time here, and it was one of those sort of traditional Chinese weddings where she was wearing a qipao, so the red, very formal Chinese dress. It was out sort of in the outskirts of Beijing as well, so it was one of these big sort of, the whole village was sort of invited. The whole township, I should say, it wasn't a village. So it is kind of neat to see some of the Chinese weddings, especially the further away you go from the big cities, the longer they are and the bigger they are. That is, they can go over multiple days and they can have like a lot of different people invited, because it's not just the bride and the groom's friends and family. It's like you almost go through, you peel back all the layers of the family and they're all invited to the wedding at certain times throughout that ceremony, or the 2 or 3 days that the wedding can take place. Anyway, that's yet another digression from the siege. The stickers, the wedding stickers that I saw posted or plastered on these manhole covers outside of the hotel this weekend, which I'd only seen after I went outside to record the air raid sirens this past weekend. All right, folks, well, we'll leave it there. That will wrap up episode number 58 of the Language Vlog podcast. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or suggestions, do get in touch. The contact information is in the show notes for this episode, or head on over to the YouTube channel at Steven's Language Vlog and drop a comment under one of the videos, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Make sure you join the newsletter. I send it out at least once a week, and I'll keep you up to date. Oh, by the way, if you haven't received this past week's newsletter, check your spam folder, because we were trying out a new email provider, and I noticed that it ended up in my spam folder. So if you didn't receive the newsletter, you're kind of wondering, what's happened to Steve? Where is he? Check your spam folder, and it's probably in there. And make sure, please open it and click not spam, because that'll tell the system. It'll relay that information back to the email gods, or the email powers that be, that say that this newsletter is not spam and should be delivered to your inbox next week. And finally, folks, if you are looking to support the podcast and keep up to date with the apps that I'm developing, there is a membership program that you can join through the Buy Me a Coffee website. buymeacoffee.com/Stevens Language Vlog is where you can find the information for that membership. And with that, we'll leave it there. Thanks again. We'll do this again. Good luck with your studies. And if you need any help, do get in touch and we'll see if we can work something out. Thanks again. Have a good one. Bye-bye.